Welcome to String Theory. My name is JP Cormier, and this is the live weekly YouTube show where you ask the questions and we give the answers on all things stringed. I'd like to thank our sponsor, G&G Music, in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, one of the best music shops in the world that services the world online and with international shipping. So, we're welcoming you to this first edition of this weekly program. I've been very excited about this because there are so many questions about what I do and how I do it, and I have very little way of answering all those questions. So this is what we came up with. So first of all, I want to say one thing first. We've noticed a rather unique anomaly in my online life. There's a small percentage of people that watch me regularly on YouTube, and that small percentage is about 90,000 people who watch me on YouTube, and they do so without subscribing. So I'm going to ask everybody tonight who's watching, and and no matter when you see this, please hit subscribe. It's the little button right there, the little red button. It costs you nothing. It obligates you in no way. It's only a way for YouTube to measure the number of repeat viewers I have. So the more subscriptions we get, the more unique things I'm allowed to do on YouTube. We're up around 6,000 subscribers now. And I'd like to see it, obviously, as many as I could possibly get. There are YouTubers, obviously, out here that have 1 million subscribers. And so when that starts to happen, all kinds of great things happen for us, and it allows us to continue making a living. And so you guys have been fantastic helping us online. And so please hit subscribe. And beside that, there's a little thumbs up guy, and you click that thumbs up right now. Do it. And if you can if there's a little notification bell there, you can click that as well. And what that'll do is when we're gonna go online with something like this, or life in music, or a live program, or whatever we're gonna do, you'll get a notification on your phone. So I ask everyone to subscribe, and later on in the show, it's going to become very important that you're a subscriber, because we have a very special contest tonight that involves a $500 coupon from G&G Music, and we're only going to give that coupon if you have subscribed to the channel. So the winner has to be a subscriber. So anyhow, that's the explanation of that. I know a lot of people, I watched YouTube for years and used YouTube for years and ended up not realizing I could subscribe and what it meant. It's actually kind of cool. I subscribe to all kinds of different channels and watch videos on tech and music and all sorts of things. And it's a great way to keep abreast of what's going on YouTube, because it's a rich, rich community. And the way things that are going right now during the pandemic, it's an incredibly important thing for artists. So please hit subscribe on my channel, and also go find your other favorite artists like Dave Gunning and Lenny Gallant and Bruce Guthrow and whoever you love. If they have a channel, go hit subscribe, because it helps them. If you like what you see tonight and you have a good time, you learn something, this is a free will donation thing. You don't have to give us money, but if you feel like you want to support us, feel free to go to paypal.me/jpcormiermusic, or send an e-transfer to jpcormier38@gmail.com. So if you want to give us a few dollars, we'll take it, and we'll very thankfully take it. And you're keeping us alive with all the different content that we're trying to keep creating here on YouTube, and it's been incredible. You guys have been doing a great job with us and for us. So we asked the question quite a ways back, about when we first decided to do this program. We asked people about whether or not they'd enjoy something like this, and we had a lot of responses and a lot of questions, and I think one of the first ones we got. So to give you an idea how this will all go, if you go on the chat section of this video, you can talk to us live, and you can put your questions there. We have a talented producer in the background watching all of this, who will shout out the questions to me, and also I want to make note that because we're on YouTube, thanks to my subscribers, the number of subscribers I have, there's a super chat function on there, a little $sign on the comment section. So if you want to give money that way, it'll pin your question to the top of the queue, which is really cool. And we'll see it longer and be able to get to it during the program. But the first question that I was asked that kind of piqued my interest, because just because it's an interesting question, a lot of people, and it's one that a lot of people have asked me over the years. I got it from Tom Lundholm. Tom, this one's for you. You asked me what the chords were for The Fisherman's Daughter. So, without all being said, we're going to go into that and I'll show you right now. But don't be afraid to ask me questions about any kind of material or any song or anything you want to find out, no matter what it could be anything. It could be guitar, fiddle, banjo, mandolin, bass. Questions about production in the studio. Questions about advice in your career, navigating the music industry now that this has all happened. You name it. Any question goes. And so this one from Tom, I should have the guitar tune probably before I do this. The chords for this song, I'm going to give you the ones that came from the original recording. And so this is the version that was on Now That the Work Is Done. And you'll notice right off the bat that I'm capoed on the 2nd fret. And the song is played in A minor, so that means the song is actually in B minor. So the basic form of it is, the intro is A minor, D, F, E minor, A minor. So that's the intro of the song. And then the verses are D minor, and then this strange little chord here, which is a D minor, sort of a D7 with an open bottom string, and the F sharp spot occupied by the thumb at the top. And then that repeats, and that's the whole verse. A minor, G to D, A minor, D7, or D regular with an F sharp bass, and then that odd little D7. Actually, sometimes they also move that bass note down to an F. G, D, A minor, E minor, A minor. And then the chorus takes you to F, C, G, da da da, C, F, C, G, E minor, E major 7. And then the chords repeat. So one more time. The chorus. F, C, D, and that's the whole song. That's the whole progression. So I hope that helped you. Uh, we're gonna we're also I think we're gonna try to also marry this question and answer show with our Master Music Method online lecture series. That's really a true teaching aid. Um, so there may be things that actually appear on string theory here that we're going to uh, put over on Master Music Method in great detail. But I hope that helped you, Tom. And so we'll go on from there. What's the next question up in line? I see where the comments are flying like mad over there.
We got Shane Arsenault.
Hey, Shane Arsenault, how you doing, buddy?
He's looking for mic recommendations for recording high quality guitar and vocals.
Well, that's a good question, and I'm going to tell you right now. This microphone that I'm using right now is given to me by Dave Gunning as a Christmas present. It's called an Aston Origin, and it's incredibly inexpensive compared to. Well, it's not that cheap, but it's under. I'm not. You'd have to check with L&M, but it's not an incredibly expensive microphone. Right now, this is my favorite microphone that I've ever used, and it's incredible. You can hear the quality of it through this, which is going through my Pro Tools rig into my phone, and the sound quality that this thing produces is unbelievable. Another microphone that you might want to try, that I use almost exclusively for the last probably 4 or 5 years, is called a Golden Age. And there's a ribbon mic that they make. It's a very large diaphragm. It looks like an old radio mic, and it's called Golden Age, and they only cost about $180. And I've been recording with this microphone for years, and we might show you one later on, but that's the name of the company. If you look up Golden Age, they make a large number of very high quality microphones for very little money. So, yeah, and besides that, I suppose those are the two that I like the best right now for everything that I'm doing, and I do everything on them. I do guitars, vocal, banjo, fiddle, every stringed instrument, even including up my acoustic bass guitar. And they seem to work incredibly well for any application. So I hope that helped you, Shane. What's next? Who's next?
Brad Chalmers.
Brad Chalmers. How you doing, Brad?
He's a recent subscriber to Master Music Method.
Right on.
And he's wondering if you're going to add a section for alternate tunings and or slide guitar.
I will definitely be adding something, because the Master Music Method has been dormant for a long while, because I got so many videos up there that new people could come in and basically stay busy for months on what was there, and so I'm starting now to consider where to go with Master Music Method and what to put on there next, which is incredibly important, because it was the way that I designed that site was to take people through how I learned to play and the discoveries in order as I made them. So alternate tunings and open tunings are definitely on the menu, because they're if we follow my timeline through where it is on the guitar section of that and the guitar directory of the site, we're soon going to get into when I started to learn alternate tunings from Chet Atkins, and tunes that I decided to play that were based in stuff like Open G, and eventually we'll be dealing with Open D's, Dad Fad. I never was a Dad Gad player. A lot of guys play in that tuning, and it's incredible. But I never went into that tuning. I strayed more into the Joni Mitchell tuning, which is Dad Fad. The G is is sharped back to an F sharp, which basically makes it a low open E. So yes, there will eventually be a section, or there'll be multiple sections, because I'll probably do it as tunes that I learned in these tunings. So yeah, there will definitely be something on there eventually that discusses that. But I feel like it's a few lessons off because the site really is designed from the ground up for a player who's never played. So yeah, it's coming for sure. Who's next?
Michael Easter.
Michael Easter, how are you doing?
He's wondering if you count time in your head or go by feel.
I never count time in my head. I only go by feel. The only time I have to count time in my head is for complex introductions. There's been certain tunes like I just ended up doing this because I had to do a backing track for this for a live YouTube broadcast, and the tune is Blue Angel. So the tune starts. That's the downbeat. So counting that off was a nightmare because you have to make a count that leaves enough space to play. There's your down note, right? So the only time that I ever even consider counting in my head is for that kind of stuff. Complex introductions where there's a bunch of music hanging over the edge of the song before it starts. And other than that, it's all feel. It's literally tapping your foot. As long because I'm keeping time in my head organically all the time. I suppose that's how I can like take a solo for, like leaving Charlottetown without a rhythm player and still manage to hit all the chord changes and keep it all in time. And that's what all it is. It's an internal clock, and you get it from playing. It's just that simple. You can't teach somebody to do it immediately. It's caused from playing live and playing, with other players a lot of the time. But the internal clock is really what you should rely on. The only time you should ever use something like a metronome to keep time when you're playing is to get your tempo in order, so that you're not speeding up or slowing down in the middle of a song. That's the point of a metronome. It's not for you to learn time. It's to keep you focused, so that your muscle memory makes you play in time and keeps you from slowing down or speeding up. Because a lot of people will play easy things really fast and hard things really slow. So a metronome will make you play everything at one speed. And you should always consider never speeding anything up to full speed until you're actually ready to do it. So you should practice things at a lower speed and gradually increase the speed up to where you want to actually perform it. Playing something and performing something is two different things. So yeah, it's an internal clock, and I hope that helped. Who's next on the list there?
Pat McKnight.
Pat McKnight, how are you doing?
You're looking for easy ideas for interesting runs when playing in C and G.
Well, there's a million of them. So it depends on the tempo, first of all. If we just look into players like Doc Watson and Jimmy Rogers, like Jimmy Rogers had a whole menu of licks in C. Just little things like that. What was the other key, Ginger? CND,
C and G.
CNG. So I think the best way to find those things out is like listen to the players you love the most. The guys that I listened to were Doc Watson. He used to do things like he would sing songs and do his own lead work. So he'd be like, way downtown, fooling around, took me to the jail. So a lick like that is just a simple chromatic lick. And start with the tissues between songs, between chords, right? Then G. But it's just something that simple. Makes G interesting, right? Then your standard flat G run. And learn to do walk-ins and walk-outs of chords, right? If you're in G, up to C. There what I did was I walked a third, like the E string of a C chord. I walked it back to G. I played a D note, but played the G chord, right? Same thing there. I'm playing an A, but hitting the D chord and walking back to G. Obviously, we're not in the same room, so I can't tell how advanced you want these answers. But I think what I'm telling you overall is to be adventurous with things. Don't always think about how to get from root to root. Like, don't always think about, I'm in G and I have to go to C, so I have to play the G note, I have to get to C. Because I just played a whole bunch of little fillers there that never moved to the roots at all. I moved into the fifths. I started a G chord with a D note, and a D chord with an A note. So be as adventurous as you want, and there's also a million ways to do fills in whatever key you're in. It doesn't really matter. So, yeah, you'll be, if you just get adventurous and always kind of try to, one good way to think about things is chromatically, which means that licks run through every note in the scale, all the way up from somewhere to somewhere else that covers every fret, as opposed to just going. You can start that lick early and put that extra note in it. Walk up chromatically, and even walk down chromatically. All these things, all this chromatic and melodic, the difference between the two is chromatic is something that runs all the frets between two notes, right? You hit everything. And melodically would be following the major scale or some form of it, right? Which means melodic kind of turnaround and tissues are all bit of a chromatic there. That's a chromatic lick. That's a melodic lick. Stays inside the scale, right? So just try to be adventurous. Find different ways that you wouldn't normally try, and especially if you're a singer. Find bass notes inside your chords that sound good against the melody, which might not be the one. Like it might not be you might play a G chord that's it's a standard G chord that has a G note at the top of it. But it would sound just a bit cooler if the B note was at the top. Then to a C, B, and an A over your D. So you got to almost separate. Part of it is separating the bass line in your head from the chord structure. If you want to play a really interesting part on the guitar while you're singing, that's the way to think of it. Think of the bass line first and where it can move and work over the chord that you need to be in. So yeah, that was an involved answer, but there's a lot of parts to the answer. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this. This fascinates me, talking about these things and trying to describe them, because there's a million ways to do that as well. So we welcome that discussion, and that's one of the reasons we started this show. So who's next? Matt.
He says, I really appreciate your original songs. I'm wondering, do you start with the melody in your head, record a voice melody, and then add the chords and notes? I'm a sort of a strange writer, because I write basically simultaneously. I will work with a melody first, a snippet of melody that I eventually put chords to. That doesn't mean that the chords are there in the beginning. It just means that the melody is there. And then the phrasing of the melody starts the process of writing the lyric. But then what happens is the lyric alters the melody because of the words I choose, alters the phrasing, which changes the melody, and then the final chord structure is put underneath that. So in other words, I might have a melody in my head that's straightforward. It is what it is. And then when I start to try to write lyrics to it, the size and cadence of the lyrics change what the melody must be to carry them. And then that will ultimately change the chords over which I'm singing the melody. So it's a multi-pronged kind of attack for writing. Sometimes some songs of mine have come out complete instantly in one piece, and I didn't need to change the melody to fit the lyric, and that's always a joy when that happens. But yeah, it's I'd say that's pretty much the process. Sometimes melody can also dictate lyric. When the melody is different, like a different meter, or there's an odd dropped measure in it, which me and Dave like to do a lot. We like to do stuff that's where the chords don't change just exactly where you think they might change. That starts to change lyric form as well. So yeah, basically that's sort of how it's done, with a few exceptions. That's pretty well how it's done, and I hope that answers your question. Who's next? Russell Howe.
Russell Howe, how are you doing? Good to have you on String Theory.
He's wondering what your sound setup is for these live shows and talks.
These live shows, I discovered this system from Dave Gunning. Dave Gunning's one of the best engineers in the world, in my opinion. He has the biggest ears of anybody I've ever known. And when he was faced with having to try to do live performances, he decided to go the best route he possibly could. And that was a device called an iRig Pro. And what an iRig Pro is just an interface that changes the output on my studio into a lightning cable for my phone. So this microphone is going through my studio where it's been mixed, EQ'd, mastered, and when I'm performing, there's reverb on it. Also, there's 2 room mics in here that are also going through the studio. And there's a left and right output on my studio that's coming to the iRig. And then the iRig, there's a lightning cable coming out of the top of it into my iPhone, which replaces the Apple audio. So you're hearing the mix directly from my console. And now, mind you, I own a recording studio. So that puts a lot of artists at a disadvantage, but it doesn't mean that you can't do this with a really good board, an 8 or 10 channel board that has onboard effects. You could, and a good microphone like this one, you could easily plug your mic into a nice board, a powered mixer, come out of the mixer into the iRig into your iPhone or even your Android phone. The connection will work for either device. And the iRig only costs about $300, so it's the best investment I've ever made, because it allows me to do high quality streaming. Because the first thing that we noticed when this all started was how bad audio was on a lot of these videos. It was horrendous, and it was horrendous on mine before Dave clued me into how to do this. So unfortunately, iRigs are about as dear as hen's teeth right now, because everybody's realized it's one of the only ways to get high quality audio into a phone. So the iPhone, I have an 11 Pro Max, which is their best video system they've ever made. It records at 60 frames a second in 24-bit audio, so stereo. So that's another thing. An iPhone in these times is just about indispensable if you're a content creator. We could go into something else like a high-end DSLR, and we may even end up doing that at some point if we do a multi-camera shoot. But for right now, I'm just as happy with this product going online as I am with anything else I could use. So that's the rig to have. The iRig Pro, a good microphone. If you have a recording studio set up, come out of that. If you don't, come out of a nice 8-track mixer or something that has onboard effects and compression that you can set up beforehand. And you should be able to get 24-bit stereo, beautiful audio on all your videos. I hope that helps you.
Next is Paul McKenna.
Paul McKenna, how you doing?
He's wondering if you find using different guitars/instruments inspires or helps creativity for tunes and songs.
Absolutely. I have never failed to write a new song when I buy a new guitar. And it works for, I don't know what that's all about, but there's no question that every time I've purchased a new instrument or been given a new instrument by a maker or whatever the case may be, I always end up writing something. It inspires me. As a matter of fact, before the pandemic occurred, I bought a vintage Yamaha from a good friend of mine in Halifax, who he knows I collect them. So it was a 50-year-old Yamaha, and it's here in the studio with me now. And it ended up being the guitar that spawned the song 22, which has been on YouTube for a while, concerning the massacre that happened a few weeks ago. And that song inspired that guitar inspired that song. A Stonebridge guitar that I got. We have dogs in the studio, in case you don't know.
Joking.
There was a Stonebridge guitar that Roger Schmidt sold to me, and that was the guitar that inspired Hometown Battlefield,
virtually the first lick I ever played on that guitar when I got it in the shop in Kitchener. I had drop D'd the guitar and went. It's before the song was ever written. And when I got home, that lick came back out of nowhere. I don't know where it came from in the first place. And that song was written. So there's no question that not only do different guitars inspire me, but different instruments do as well. Like if I get tired, the sad thing is I never get tired of guitar. So I do reach for other instruments to inspire me, but mostly it's the guitar. The guitar does all of that for me, and it's always has for most of my life. So hope that answers your question. Who else we got on there?
The next one's a write-in from the Facebook post. It was Thomas Messenger.
Thomas Messenger.
He's wondering about your drop tuning experiences, how and where you picked it up.
Well, my first experiences with drop tunings were my brother Joe being around the house playing Bob Dylan, which were all in drop D. And then after that, I started to delve into Chet Atkins, who was doing songs in a lot of open G songs, and then open C as well. And that's how I learned it. There were tunes that I wanted to learn of Chet's that could only be done in open G, so that became a thing. And there was a few that he did between open C and open G, and I had to learn those. And then along the way, I discovered Dad Fad, which is really the Joni Mitchell, is it Joni Mitchell? Yeah, the Joni Mitchell tuning. So that became something I wrote a lot of songs in, that tuning. And I discovered that one on my own, and I discovered the tuning for like tunes like Steeplechase Lane, which is almost like a C9 steel guitar tuning. That is discovered by accident, because I wanted to play that particular tune. It's the only tune I believe that's really written in that tuning. So all of my experience with the drop tunings came from wanting to learn a specific tune, and that's how I learned them. And it was trial and error. It was literally, okay, well, I don't have that low a note, so I gotta make this go lower, right? So I'd listen to the record till my ears bled, and when I could finally hit all the low notes and all the weird notes that I was hearing that I could tell were open, that gave me the tuning. So that's how I did it. Who's next? Anybody? Are we frozen over there or what?
No.
Okay.
You got another write-in from Dave Hibbs.
Dave Hibbs.
He's wondering if you have any advice on how to get your singles on the radio, or his signals on the radio.
Hell, well, from time to time on String Theory, I'm gonna really disappoint you, because one thing I won't do to anybody who comes on here and takes the time to ask me a question and speak to me and share their time with me when they could be doing something else, I'll never lie to you. And right now, the chances of somebody getting their songs on commercial radio, where you'd actually be played on a regular basis like any other single that comes out, the chances of doing that without the support of a major label and one or more major players in the Canadian industry, if you're from Canada, same with the States, the chances of getting your song on radio where it's going to be played and listened to on a daily basis is absolutely zero. And I say that with one addition. If you want to spend the money
you can hire somebody called a tracker. And what a tracker does is they take that single, and depending on who the tracker is, that's the most important thing about the tracker. Who is the tracker? Do they have a history in getting songs of your genre to get played on commercial radio? If you hire a tracker that can do that, a tracker can send the single out to all of their contact radio stations, and potentially, maybe, you'll get added to a rotation, they call it, on a commercial radio station. Now, unless you have a label, or someone also tracking your sales, and the tracking ends up having you wind up on the charts, which is a possibility. You never know. Making records for radio is pointless. It's absolutely pointless. The best thing that you can do if you want to hear yourself on the radio, and you think you got something good enough to go on the radio, the first thing you should do as soon as you've made a record is contact the CBC archives and get the record to them. I believe now it's all done digitally. There are hubs in this country that will send your record to every CBC broadcaster in the country, every radio broadcaster in the country, CBC. Secondly, you need to look for local radio stations. Like, for instance, there are community radio stations everywhere you go in this country. There's one in Cape Breton called The Coast in Glace Bay. It's a great station. There's one out here in Halifax, which isn't it also called The Coast? I can't remember. But anyhow, there's local radio stations, community radio stations, and they will play you ad nauseum. If your material is good, they need material, and they need Canadian artists, and they have a mandate to support Canadian artists. Commercial radio does not. Let me make that very clear. Canadian radio is forced to play 30% Canadian content by the CRTC. The other 70% comes from the United States. Most of these stations are owned by American conglomerates, and their playlists are generated by computers in the States and fed to the radio broadcasters here in Canada. That's the business. And it always has been the business. And before the CRTC made the law that they had to play 30% Canadian content on Canadian radio, things were dark here. It was hard to get on the radio at all. So I'm not trying to discourage you. And to the contrary, I want you to fight. If you got something you need to go on the radio, contact the CBC first. Contact your community radio stations first. Contact the local commercial stations like the Hawk in Port Hawkesbury, or the country station in Sydney that helped me. Like, there's been commercial radio stations who have taken me on regardless that I have no standing with trackers, labels, charts, any of that stuff. There's people in commercial radio stations that'll help you, but they have to be local, and especially helpful is if a commercial station locally has a specialty show. Let's say you live wherever you live, and your local station plays country or plays rock or plays whatever. But on Saturday night at 8 o'clock, they have the Nova Scotia show or the New Brunswick show or the Ontario show. And they feature artists from the local area. So these are all ways to get on the radio. The idea now of becoming a radio sensation, it's It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen unless you are Justin Bieber or somebody like that that just fits into that machine. And I encourage you to not fit into that machine. Own your own career, own your own music. Don't let nobody tell you what to do. Make the records you want to make and be your own artist and build your own audience from the ground up. Like before this all happened, I would have told you, get out on the road and play. I don't care if you have to play for $100 a night. Grow your audience from the grassroots. Sell your records in person. Get people interested in you by having them see you live. And then, so now, we're in a different situation. We have to do all that online, but it can be done. I'm doing it. Now, mind you, I got a 38-year career behind me. So I can do it. It's hard, and I'm dependent on people to help us, and they are, but you can do it too. Every artist has a chance now to start to build their online profile, get involved heavily with YouTube, Facebook, YouTube especially. Subscribe, 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 subscribe. Get all your buddies. When you start your channel, get as many subscriptions as you can. As soon as you get 1,000 subscribers, you're able to do live monetized broadcasts on YouTube. You're allowed to do promotions. You're allowed to do scheduled live events. You're allowed to do all these things are tied to the amount of people you reach online, just as we were trying to reach people live in the festival field and the folk clubs and the coffee houses and the house concerts and all these things. So there's your radio lesson. And I hope you take it to heart. And by all means, don't ever take anything I say on string theory here as the be-all, end-all, because it's not. There's always someone else who might have an alternate opinion or a piece of information that might help you more than what I'm giving you or might add to what I've told you. Talk to people. Talk to people. Find out what they're saying. Find out what they know. Go for it. So there you go. I hope that helped you. Who's next?
Joe Doucette.
Joe Doucette.
He's wondering how you maintain the health of your hands, repetitive strain, injuries, arthritis, that sort of thing.
Well, that's an interesting question. I didn't maintain the health of my hands for many, many years because when I was about 28 years old, I had played so much. 23 years by that time. I was 23 years into playing. And I had done so much damage to my body from playing that I got a very, very severe disorder called thoracic outlet syndrome. And it was mostly caused by fiddling and holding a banjo over my shoulder for too many nights. And what it is an entrapment of the nerves in the center of your chest. They're the heart attack nerves. When you have a heart problem, those are the nerves that cause the pain. So those nerves became entrapped and they travel down both of your arms. So I was 28 years old and my arms would go numb and they'd hurt, then they'd go numb. And then on top of that, to make things worse, the thoracic outlet syndrome shortened the median nerves so bad, and there was so much calcium buildup in the carpal tunnels in my hands from playing for 23 years, basically non-stop, and playing the fiddle for about 10 years hard, and that's incredibly hard on your hands and your body. My hands gave out. I was 28 years old, facing the end of my career. I couldn't hold a bow, I couldn't hold a cup of coffee, couldn't hold a pick. I would play 2 or 3 songs and my hands would just open by themselves. The pick would fall, the bow would fall. I'd drop cups of coffee, glasses of water. Every time I utilized strength in my hands, it would just cut the nerves off entirely and my hands would just open on their own. So this was a serious problem. So I ended up going to a surgeon named Winston Parkhill.
He was one of the people apparently who invented the surgery for carpal tunnel syndrome. He looked at my case. It was extremely severe, and he ended up operating on both of my hands at the same time. They usually only do one at a time. But they laid me out there in the operating room on this table, looked like I was being crucified, and they did the surgery on me while I was awake. He went in, fixed the problem. I was in cast for 7 days, had 24 stitches in each hand, and the surgery cured me to this very day. He said it was guaranteed for 30 years. Now, with that being said, I've had no other major problems except for slight arthritis. I have a bit of arthritis starting to creep into the smaller joints in my hands, but it's not painful, and it causes me to be a little stiffer than I'd like to be when I first start playing. But once I've been playing, frankly, I've been kind of rough on my hands. I've done a lot of, labor work. I've swung hammers and axes and chainsaws, and most recently, not as much. But I've tried to keep my hands strong, and just the main thing that I've done in my life is try not to fall on them. Like, as it's initially, when that surgery was done, there was no sheath over this nerve, and if I fell on them, I would have severed the nerve, and that would have been the end of my hands. So that's about all I've really done, is just try to keep them strong and keep them, don't be hard on them. Like, and I have been. They've been banged and knocked and never broke a bone or anything, but I've recently have had problems with tendons being short, and pulling things and stretching tendons in my forearm, which caused nerve problems in my middle fingers of my left hand. But that went away as well. So I guess I've just done as much as I possibly could based on common sense. I have to maintain these hands for at least another 30 years if I'm lucky. So I'm doing the best I can. And they are warped and twisted, and the fingers are, stuck the way they are from playing. My index finger's crooked on this hand. My thumb joints are, getting big from playing thumbs, finger style. And I have a great deal of strength in my hands. Powerful hands, even though they're small for my size. And so, yeah, they've served me well so far. So can't be too sad about that. So I think we got time for one more question. And before we do that, I want to say real quickly, we have a massive giveaway tonight, and really excited about this. G&G Music in Antigonish has graciously become our sponsor on this show. And Glenn Gotel up there at G&G is willing to work with me to help bring some cool stuff to this series. So here's the deal. You might notice this guitar I've been holding all night. This is the J.P. Cormier signature model Boucher guitar, and it's one of my proudest moments is to have this company, build me a guitar with my name on it. And I love this instrument. I call her the Mona Lisa, and she's incredible. It's the best guitar I've ever owned in my life, I think. And Glenn has had a great deal of success selling Bouchers at G&G. So when I told him about starting String Theory, he made me an incredible offer. He is going to give String Theory, me, that I'm going to pass it to you, a $500 gift certificate against the purchase of one of these instruments. And he has 2 of them up there, I think. One for sure. I think he's already sold one. $500 off this guitar at his shop right now. And all you have to do is answer a trivia question. So how this will work is I'm going to ask this question, and then after the broadcast is over, which is going to be quite shortly, we will put a post on my fan page on Facebook, JP Cormier on Facebook. If you're not following me, follow me there. But go check it out. Look me up. There'll be a post there that says, the correct answer, please. And the first person on that post that puts the correct answer to this question, we will contact you immediately and you will receive a $500 gift certificate against the purchase of the JP Cormier Signature Model Boucher guitar. So I've chosen a trivia question about me that is quite ungoogleable. I don't think that people will know this unless they have followed me rabidly for years. And it might just be a guess that wins you $500 gift certificate. The question is this. One of the greatest friends I ever had in the music business was a lady from Big Pond, Cape Breton Island. And her name was Rita McNeil. She was a great woman. There's people already chiming in here. She was a great woman and a great musician, a great writer, a true Canadian icon. And when we lost her, it left a hole in everybody's heart. Millions of people all around the world loved that woman. I'm going to tell you something. I toured across country with her on more than one occasion. How many times did I travel across the country with Rita McNeil? That is the question that will win you, if you get it right, $500 off a JP Cormier Signature Model guitar. How many times did I tour across Canada with Rita McNeil? Go to my JP Cormier fan page on Facebook, look for the post that's asking for the answer to that question, and the first person that goes on there and types the right answer is the winner. And we'll announce the winner and congratulate the winner on next week's show on Wednesday, 7 p.m. every Wednesday. Make sure you come back to us, and I'm going to answer one more quick question before we go.
I apologize if I get his name, if I mangle his name, but it's Dax Raxawa.
Oh, Dax, how you doing, buddy?
What's the easiest / best way to play the fretboard beyond the first 3 frets?
That's a good question. Well, I'll tell you what. There's a number of ways to do it. The first thing you should do, and I won't get into this because this is a long lesson, but I'll tell you very simply. The first thing you need to learn is the circle of fifths. So that's the easiest way to figure out what's going on the fretboard. And the circle of fifths is alphabetical. And it goes through the sharps and flats as well. So basically, if you start at A, the open A string, the frets are as follows. A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and right back to A again. So it's all alphabetical. It goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, with the sharps and flats in between. That works for every single string alphabetically. So the E, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, and on it goes. So if you find a chart online, perhaps, like I do a lesson on it in Master Music Method, you can find a chart online that shows you simply what the circle of fifths is and what order the notes are in. You can find every note on the fretboard, just like that, just by knowing the alphabet. And then from there, you want to start looking at all sorts of things, like where your bar chords sit and what they are. And like a barred E here is an F, and then here is a G, the 3rd fret. Here at the 5th, it's an A. Here at the 7th, it's a B. At the 8th, it's a C. And on it goes. And find all those chords and identify them, so you know where your shapes are. If you're playing up here, you're also playing in C. So you can have a whole bunch of licks there. those sorts of things where you start to put together where the mated chords are to the chords below the 5th fret. Find all your G's, find all your D's, find all your A's, find all your E's with bar chords up here. That'll give you a great idea immediately of what's happening right up and down the neck all the way. So that's sort of a compressed answer. But circle of fifths, find out what it is. Get to where you can name every note on the fretboard, and then you're part of the way there to figuring out, if you want to play a G, where the shape is that lives in. And if you have any questions about that, there's Master Music Method as well, which are detailed lessons about things like that. There's a whole lesson on the circle of fifths. So that's going to be it for tonight. We want to thank you very, very much for coming to this tuning into the inaugural episode of String Theory. And we want to thank G&G Music, Glenn Gotel. Don't forget, Facebook, my page, JP Cormier. Look for the post. It's looking for the answer to our trivia question. Put your answer in there. The first one we see on there that's right, $500 gift certificate against this guitar up in Antigonish, and he ships worldwide. And so we thank you very, very much, and we'll see you next week, next Wednesday, every Wednesday, 7 p.m., String Theory, the live YouTube show where you ask the questions and we try to give the answers on all things stringed. And just remember, music's only as hard as you make it. We'll see you soon.
On me like the sun. As my heart melted away, I heard somebody say,